The enemy state clauses in a Taiwan Strait conflict. Could Japan ever be treated as a country against which action may be taken without Security Council approval? Tensions surrounding the Taiwan Strait are rapidly becoming the most sensitive flashpoint in East Asia. As discussions grow over the possibility that Japan may intervene under its survival-threatening situation framework, a largely forgotten but still legally present concept from the United Nations Charter has resurfaced. The enemy state clauses. They have never been formally removed. They were never repealed through the Charter Amendment procedure. And in a major regional crisis, their legal meaning, long considered irrelevant, may once again become a subject of debate. This article explores, in a balanced but analytically rigorous way, under what circumstances these clauses could be argued to have theoretical relevance in a Taiwan Strait contingency. 1. What are the enemy state clauses, and why do they still exist? The enemy state clauses generally refer to Article 53(1), Article 77(1), b. Article 107. Their core purpose, drafted in 1945, was straightforward. If the Axis powers, Japan, Germany, Italy, revived aggressive policies, the Allied powers could take certain measures, potentially without prior Security Council authorization. These clauses reflected the geopolitical environment of the immediate post-war world. They were never intended to be permanent, yet they remain in the text. They have never been removed. And the UN General Assembly's 1995 declaration that they are obsolete has no amendment force. Thus, as a matter of formal legal interpretation, Japan continues to fall within the literal definition of enemy state under the Charter. 2. Why are the clauses considered inapplicable today? Most contemporary international law scholarship views the clauses as unusable because 1. The prohibition on the use of force is now a peremptory norm, jus cogens. 2. The clauses were drafted as temporary transitional provisions. 3. No state has invoked them for more than 7 decades. Under normal conditions, these points are decisive. However, these arguments were built for a relatively stable, peaceful environment, not for a major regional conflict involving great power rivalry and the functional paralysis of the Security Council. In such circumstances, old provisions sometimes gain renewed interpretive relevance, not because they were designed for today, but because the legal system faces gaps that were never anticipated. 3. Why Japan's possible intervention under the survival-threatening situation framework matters. Japan's 2015 security legislation introduced the concept of a survival-threatening situation, Sunli Weiji Shutar, which allows limited collective self-defense when an attack on a close partner threatens Japan's own survival. In a real Taiwan contingency, the scenario could unfold as follows. 1. A large-scale conflict breaks out in the Taiwan Strait. 2. The United States intervenes militarily. 3. Japan determines the situation threatens its survival. 4. The Self-Defense Forces, SDF, provide operational support or even engage in combat around the first island chain. Once Japanese forces take on active military roles near China's coastline, the nature and legal characterization of their actions become significantly more complex. In this context, the question naturally arises: would Japan's involvement reopen the theoretical relevance of the enemy state clauses? 4. Under what extreme conditions could the clauses be argued to have theoretical validity? This is not a prediction of events, but a structured international law analysis. For the clauses to generate a serious legal debate, 3 conditions would need to converge. Condition 1. Japan's enemy state status remains valid in the Charter's text. Article 53(2) defines enemy states as states that were enemies of Charter signatories during the Second World War. Japan still falls within this definition. Because no amendment has removed it, this textual basis remains intact. Thus, any legal argument, however controversial, has a formal starting point. Condition 2. Japan's actions in the Taiwan area could be characterized as renewed military intervention. If Japan's involvement escalated beyond supportive or defensive measures, for example, engaging in direct hostilities, enabling U.S. combat operations in a decisive way, or clashing with Chinese forces near the Taiwan or East China Sea theater, then some states could plausibly argue Japan has moved beyond territorial self-defense and entered a zone of extraterritorial military action. From this interpretation, a further argument could emerge. Such actions resemble, at least structurally, the type of renewed aggressive policy that the enemy state clauses were originally crafted to prevent. This does not mean the conclusion is universally accepted, only that in an adversarial legal environment, the argument becomes logically available. Condition 3. The Security Council becomes paralyzed due to veto politics. One of the historical motivations for the enemy state clauses was the fear that the Security Council might become unable to act if a great power shielded a former Axis state. In a Taiwan contingency, the United States would almost certainly veto any resolution condemning Japan. The Security Council might remain unable to address escalation involving Japan. A legal vacuum could emerge. In such circumstances, some states could argue that the original functional purpose behind the clauses, providing a mechanism when the Security Council is deadlocked, resurfaces. This would not automatically activate the clauses, but it provides a coherent legal rationale for discussing them. 5. Why the clauses have a certain theoretical plausibility in a Taiwan scenario. Bringing the pieces together, the enemy state clauses may have structured legally recognizable pathways for becoming relevant in discussion. 1. Textual plausibility. The clauses still exist. Japan still meets the original definition. No amendment has removed them. This gives the argument a formal legal anchor. 2. Behavioral plausibility. If Japan undertakes extraterritorial military operations in an active conflict involving China, the nature of its actions becomes open to legal interpretation. Certain states may view it as exceeding the scope of defensive commitments. This creates a factual basis for revisiting the clause's underlying logic. 3. Institutional plausibility. If the Security Council cannot function due to great power vetoes, the collective security system is effectively suspended. The historical rationale of the enemy state clauses, providing a fallback mechanism, may gain analytical relevance. This aligns with the original structural purpose of the provisions. 6. Conclusion. Could the clauses become relevant again? In normal diplomatic environments, the enemy state clauses are effectively dormant. But in high-intensity conflict scenarios, particularly those involving Japan's extraterritorial military engagement, a direct clash of great powers, and a paralyzed Security Council, the clauses possess a degree of theoretical interpretive space. This does not mean they would be operationalized as legal authorization for force, but it does mean that, in a Taiwan Strait contingency, the enemy state clauses could reasonably re-enter legal and diplomatic debate, not as an anachronism, but as a structurally relevant question raised by the intersection of history, geography, and great power politics. Therefore, they merit a serious and renewed examination.